And we are live. Hey, how's it going? It is your. Oh, let me get this. I'll get everything recording here now. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Good. I think we're going. All right. Hey, how's it going? It is your muscle building coach, Lee Hayward, back again with another live video Q&A. So over the next hour, I'll be hanging out here answering any questions that you may have with regards to bodybuilding and fitness, building muscle, losing fat, any specific challenges that you're dealing with when it comes to your workouts, with your diet plan, supplementation. Feel free to post those in our video chat, and I'll do my best to help you out in any way that I can. And if I can't help you out, then I'll try and refer you to somewhere where you can get some help and answers to your questions. So I'm going to be hanging out here and doing my best. So before we get into the actual video Q&A, what I want to do is make sure that you can hear me, see me, make sure that everything's set up properly. So if you are watching this live, please do me a favor. Let me know in the chat window if you can hear me and see me, if it's coming through loud and clear. I really appreciate that. And then once you've done that, please post any questions that you have, and I'll try and get through as many of them as possible. Usually the way this works is the people who get their questions in now, the sooner the better, because obviously you can type your questions in a lot faster than I can answer them. So generally the way it works is those who are watching live right now, you're going to get your questions answered first. As far as the people who tune in later, unfortunately, more often than not, I'm not going to be able to get to all the questions, but I'll do my best nonetheless. So I'm just going to give you a moment now to type in your questions, and I'm going to make sure that everything is coming through here. Gotta open up a new window here so I can access the Q&A. All right, let's see where we to. All right, got the questions coming through, got my stuff coming through. Let's, shit. Okay, let's do it now. Okay. We've got XXK4 Rizx, however you pronounce your username, says he can hear me. That's good. We have Poke Goo, says, please tell me how to build calves. Do I need diet besides a workout? Well, your workout is going to be geared towards building calves specifically. The diet portion is basically to ensure that you're providing the raw materials that your body needs to actually build the muscle. So when it comes to calf training, what I would recommend is shorter, more frequent calf workouts. The calves are a very simple muscle to train. I mean, you point and flex your toe. That's basically it, right? Your foot extension, foot stretching and extension. That's all there is. I mean, there's not a lot of different things you can do with the calves. Now, I mean, you can do different calf raise variations, standing calf raises and seated calf raises and leg press calf raises and body weight calf raises and things like that. But it's all some sort of a calf raise variation. What you really need to focus on is two major types. You want to do a calf raise with your legs straight when your knees are locked out, and you also want to do a calf raise where your knees are bent. So I mean, a standing and a seated calf raise would cover both. And the reason for that is when your knees are bent in a seated calf raise, for example, that's when you're going to work the gastrocnemius. And that's the muscle, the soleus. That's the muscle underneath. The calf is basically two muscles. You have the gastrocnemius and the soleus. And the soleus is underneath. So what happens is you want to focus on training that with your knees bent. And that's the only way to really fully engage it. So if you want to maximize calf development, you really need to do both a knees bent calf raise variation as well as a knees locked out calf raise variation. As far as the technique is concerned, what you need to focus on is strict controlled form. One of the common mistakes when people are training their calves is they use way too much weight, and they usually try and do the short, choppy reps where they're kind of just bouncing up and down in the mid-range. They're not fully going through that full stretch in the bottom. They're not coming all the way up onto their tippy toes, getting a full squeeze and peak contraction. They're just kind of doing these mid-range choppy reps. And the way your calves work in day-to-day life, just walking around and doing your stuff, moving your body, you're always doing a mid-range rep. So if you really want to stimulate them, you need to get outside that mid-range. And that's why I emphasize the fully stretched as well as the peak contraction with all calf raise work. And if you do that, your calves are going to respond. So a few sets of standing calf raises, a few sets of seated calf raises. Do that, say, every other day if your calves are a stubborn body part. That's as simple as that. I mean, if you want to throw in some extra stuff, I mean, you can do like body weight calf raises at home in your spare time. But even if you just did that alone, the standing and the seated calf raises every other day, your calves are going to respond. We have Daniel is joining us. Says, glad to finally be able to watch one of these live. Well, welcome, Daniel. Glad to have you tuning in. And if you have any questions, please feel free to post them, and I'll do my best to help you out. Eric is joining us, and he says, would you consider taking an adrenaline shot to hit a PR? No, I don't think I would. When it comes to adrenaline, I mean, some people are thinking that sounds pretty crazy. And yeah, taking an actual shot of adrenaline, you know, like a EpiPen or something like that, whatever, like run over to the squat rack, right? That would be crazy. But you can mimic the psych up to get your body to naturally produce adrenaline. And if you go to watch a powerlifting meet, a lot of times you'll see guys psyching themselves up. Now, some have some pretty bizarre rituals. You'll see some guys like want to get slapped in the face and everything else and have their training partners yell at them. That's, you know, I mean, it works for some people. I'm not going to knock it. It works for some people. Other guys like to take more of a quiet, Zen-like focused approach where they're just like zoom, you know, everything is just zoomed out. They kind of like have tunnel vision, and they're just in the moment, in the kind of focusing on them and ignoring everything around them. That's kind of the approach that I like to take. But as far as adrenaline and psyching yourself up, you can do that just through your own mental visualization and how you go about, you know, I guess, psyching yourself up for the lift. The only downside to that is sometimes people can overdo it and burn themselves out. I mean, you can burn out your adrenal glands if you do this too often. So it's not something like, I wouldn't do it every single set, but, you know, if every blue moon, or like if someone's a competitive powerlifter or weightlifter, psyching up for a max effort, you know, 1 rep max lift, especially if it's, as you're trying to hit a PR, yeah, you can do that every now and then, and it does work. But as far as taking a shot, hell no, not going to be at that. We got NJ1988, or sorry, NG1988 joining us here from the UK. Got me, myself, that's his username, says, I just started the gym. Please suggest how to start. Well, you've come to the right place if you're looking to start working out. And I have a basic beginner's workout program right on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel. Just go to my main channel page, and right there on the main page, if you scroll down, there's a section there for beginner's workouts. And I have 3 different videos there. The first one is a total body workout. That's what I would recommend you start with. Start with that for at least 6 weeks. Do it every other day. Just follow the exercises as outlined in that basic beginner's total body workout. The idea when you're starting off at the gym is you just want to get into the habit of going to the gym on a consistent basis. I mean, the showing up is the biggest battle for a beginner. Just getting your ass in the gym door. If you can do that on a consistent basis, you're already a success. What you do when you get in there really doesn't matter that much. And I'm serious. For a beginner, it doesn't. If you just do anything consistently, you're going to make progress. Because at this stage, all training is new muscle stimulation. And as long as you do it consistently and lift within your means, meaning that you don't push yourself to the limit, to the point of getting injured, you're going to make progress. So just a simple total body workout done 3 days a week is a great place to start. After that, you may want to progress to something a little bit more advanced, maybe like dividing your body parts in half, maybe like an upper body one day, lower body the next. That's a good way to split up your body parts and to get more exercise variety in there. After that, you may want to go to a more advanced push-pull legs type of training split. And from there, you can do whatever. I mean, there's all kinds of different programs that you can follow. But start off with a basic 3-day per week total body workout. And I have one for you right on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel. Sir Games a Lot all day is joining us. And he says he has small wrists. Is it possible to make it not look small? Forearm workouts. Yes, you can do forearm workouts to build up the illusion of bigger muscles. And, the fact that you have small wrists or small joints, that can be a blessing in disguise. A lot of times you see the aesthetically pleasing physiques. They very often have small joints, but they've developed their muscles so that it looks bigger in comparison. Like if you have someone who's really big, stocky, blocky, big wrists, big ankles, big joints, just the quote unquote big bone person, they're not going to have the same aesthetics as someone who has smaller joints and then develops their muscles accordingly. So very often you can actually develop a nice symmetrical, aesthetically pleasing physique because it has the nice flowing lines, the big muscle bellies tapering down to the small joints. Some bodybuilders who kind of come to mind, if you look at like Flex Wheeler, back in the day, he had small joints, big muscle bellies, and it really created that nice flowing, aesthetically pleasing physique. Dexter Jackson, kind of similar, he has that same type of structure. A lot of smaller bodybuilders have that going to their advantage. The small joints can actually be an advantage. So just because you have small wrists and small joints, don't let that discourage you. I mean, I know it's frustrating in the moment, but if you stay consistent and you actually develop the muscles, it'll look better in the long run. Jamie is joining us. Janie Howsam says, Lee, what's the best way to build grip strength? My deadlift is failing because of my grip. With the grip, my favorite tool is the Heavy Grips hand grippers. I actually have some right here. Where are we here? Okay. I carry these on my website, and I have been since 2004, actually. This is my favorite grip building tool. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do for your grip, but this just happens to be my personal favorite. And the Heavy Grips hand grippers come in 6 different strengths. This right here is a Heavy Grips 100, and they go all the way up to a 350. So that's the spring tension. That's what that is. It means that this has 100 pounds of tension in the spring. Now, that doesn't actually mean that it takes 100 pounds of tension to close the gripper, because the way the handles are, the leverage of the handles make the spring easier to close. But the spring itself has 100 pounds of tension. All the way up to 350 pounds of tension. So you can train your grip in a progressive overload fashion. And I would definitely recommend getting yourself a set of these if you don't already. Just head on over to leehayward.com, scroll down through the side menu bar, and you'll be able to see the link to them. As a bonus, if you order these through my website, I'll give you a free hand gripper training manual. And that is the specific manual that I use to build up to closing the Heavy Grips 350 hand gripper. The cool thing about these is it allows you to train your grip in a progressive overload fashion, but there's a lot of different ways that you can train your grip using Heavy Grips. One, obviously, you can just do regular closes, like just rep out normal closes, but you can take like a light gripper and do what's known as an overcrush, which is basically you take a light gripper and you mash that sucker shut and you squeeze it almost to the point where you're trying to like break the gripper. That's the kind of the mentality you have. You squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and try and overcrush the gripper and hold it for 10 seconds, just as max effort squeeze. And then you can alternate that with heavy negatives. So you can take a gripper that you can't fully close, but you can cheat it shut with 2 hands. So let's say this was too hard for me to close. I get it like halfway close. Then what I'll do is I'll use my other free hand to cheat it shut. And then I'll do a heavy negative where I just let the gripper peel my fingers open. And by doing that, alternating the overcrush and then the heavy negatives with a gripper that you can't close, that is a great combo for building strong, brutal grip strength. And that's what I did personally to build up to closing the heavy grips 350. So I explained the whole specifics of the workout, the frequency, the sets and the reps and all that in the training manual. So if you want, go over to my website, leehayward.com, and pick yourself up a set of these, and it'll make a huge difference to your deadlift. And that's why I got involved with them back in 2004, because my deadlift grip sucked as well. I mean, I was abusing straps, using them for all my back workouts. And then when I actually tried to lift without the straps, I couldn't hold on to diddly squat. So I said, I got to look into something. And that was my savior for grip strength right there, was the heavy grips. All right, let's move on. Try to keep this going. Keep the momentum going here. Okay, we've got Eric's joining us, just saying coming through loud and clear. Thank you much. Venomous says, Lee, when I do push day, I can't seem to max out on shoulders because I'm fatigued. Any tips? Okay, well, even if you are fatigued, you can still max out. I mean, you just have to adjust the weights accordingly. The way it works, whenever you train a body part, if you train it first in your workout, you're going to be stronger compared to if you train it later in your workout. That's just common sense. So if you're doing a push day, so let's just say you're training chest, shoulders, and triceps, and you start with chest first, then you're probably not going to be able to handle as much with your shoulders compared to as if you started with shoulders. So if you want to prioritize shoulders, then you can change the order and do shoulders first. And that way you'll have more strength when it comes to your shoulder exercises. But then vice versa, now your shoulders are going to be pre-exhausted, so that when you get into training the chest afterwards, your chest, you're probably not going to be able to handle as much with your chest exercises. So it's just the nature of the beast. I mean, that's the way it works. So if you want to kind of have that well-balanced structure, you can rotate through the body parts that you start with. So like this week, start with chest, then do shoulders, then do triceps. Next week, start with shoulders, then do chest, then do triceps. And then the following week, start with triceps, and then do chest and shoulders. You know, you can just rotate through if you want to hit each body part when you're fresh and full of energy, so that you can handle maximum weight with that body part. You know, that's one way to go about it. Another way is to just pick your weakest body part of whatever group you're training and make sure to put that one first in your workout, so that that one can get the priority. So if it is the shoulders that are the lagging body part, make sure to train those first. If it's the chest, train that first. If it's the triceps, train those first. You know, that's what I would recommend if you do have an imbalance and one body part is lagging. But if you just kind of want to build up it all, then rotate through. And that will allow you to get the best of all the exercises when you're fresh and full of energy. Saurin CERN. That's his username. He says, "Can I train 2 times a day?" You know what? Maybe you can. The way it works with training, like a lot of people say, you know, can I do this? Can I do that? I don't know. Maybe you can. Maybe you can't. I don't even know who you are. So can you do it? I really have no idea. Is it ideal to train 2 times a day? It depends. If you are new to working out, then I would say no. If you are more advanced and you're looking to basically step up your game and, you know, perform some different workouts to spur on new muscle growth, then yeah, that's when multiple workouts can actually come into play. What I would probably recommend, just kind of a general guideline here, if you're novice to intermediate, don't bother training multiple times a day. It's not, you don't need to. 1 workout a day, you know, 3 or 4 days a week, plenty. If you're beyond that, you've been training for several years and you're trying to bring up stubborn body parts, maybe you're getting ready for a competition or something along those lines, that's when you can look into doing multiple training sessions. For example, like competitive bodybuilders will regularly do you know, a separate cardio session and a separate weight training session. I mean, that's technically 2 training sessions a day. One's cardio, one's weights. Sometimes they might even do a split where they'll do half their workout in the morning and then half their workout in the evening. You know, if you are going to do that, then you have to adjust the volume accordingly. I mean, you can't do like a 2-hour workout in the morning and then a 2-hour workout in the evening and do that day after day and expect to recover from it. I mean, you have a limit to your recovery abilities. So if you are going to train more frequently, chances are you're going to have to dial back the volume of those workouts to allow for your natural recovery abilities. So that's the way I would look at it. If you're beginner to intermediate, don't even bother with it. If you're advanced, then you can look into different strategies for 2-a-day trainings. You can also use it to bring up stubborn body parts as well. Like if, for example, we had a gentleman earlier asked for some tips on building up the calves. If you wanted to do, you know, your regular weight training workout at the gym and then, you know, at home in your spare time, throw in some extra calf work, you could do that. You know, that would be considered 2-a-day training, but it's more structured because you're just using it to kind of isolate and focus on a stubborn body part. Anyway, what else we got? Getting back to that, the question about calves as a follow-up, do I need a diet to build calves? You know, you need a proper muscle building diet to build all your body parts, but again, it's not specifically going to build calves. Like, it's not like I'm going to give you you know, eat these many calories, this much protein, this much carbs and fat, and this is the secret macro ratio for building calves. It doesn't work that way. It's just you need to provide enough fuel in order to recover all your muscles. So the calves are no different. I mean, if you think of the diet you need to eat to build calves, is going to be the same diet you need to eat to build your chest or your biceps or your back or all over. So just think of making sure that you're meeting your overall nutritional needs and then training those body parts in the gym. So yeah, if you want to build calves, you still need to follow a proper diet. It's not like calves are, you know, you don't need to eat properly and they'll grow. I mean, you still need to eat properly in order to build all your body parts, including the calves. And if you want some help with that, I have a free bodybuilding nutrition guide that you can download. It's called Bodybuilding Nutrition Made Simple. Again, head on over to leehayward.com and you should see it there in the side menu bar of the website. You can download that guide, and it basically covers the fundamentals of proper nutrition. And again, that applies for all body parts that you're trying to build, including the calves. Okay, let's see what else we got. NG1988 says, Lee, do you have any tips on remaining sane when laid off because of a bad injury? Injuries can be frustrating. I've had a few over the years, and I can relate to what you're going through. As far as remaining sane, what I would recommend is don't look at an injury as meaning you have to totally stop training. Now, in some cases you may, depending on what kind of injury it is. I mean, if you had a serious back injury or something and you can't even walk or whatever, I mean, obviously, yeah, you're probably going to have to take some time off. But if it's just a nagging injury, like, you know, okay, you hurt your shoulder or you hurt your knee or you hurt your elbow or something like that, chances are you're still going to be able to do something to work around that injury. You know, if you have an upper body injury, chances are you can still train your lower body. If you have a lower body injury, chances are you'll still be able to train your upper body. So try and work around that injury the best you can. And that will help you to remain sane while you're recovering from the injury. You can also look into doing active recovery workouts. I mean, they're not as fun and exciting, but you can still, they are productive nonetheless. So, I mean, you can still spend your time going to the gym and doing some active recovery work while you're recovering from your injury. And I did this myself. I remember, like, several years back, I had a serious muscle tear in my lat area. It was not exactly the lat, but it was kind of like right in that whole lat tricep tie-in area. I had a muscle tear, and even to this day, there's still a gap in my armpit where I tore that muscle. But while I was recovering from that, I would still go to the gym on a regular basis, but I would literally go through the motions. I mean, I can remember using the hammer strength machines with no weight, like literally just the empty handles and going through the motions. and then building up to a 2.5-pound plate on each side of the hammer strength machine. So here I was, doing like hammer strength rows and hammer strength bench presses with a 2.5-pound plate on each side and just going through the motions, right? And I mean, yeah, it's not fun or exciting or anything like that, and it kind of makes you feel like a douchebag because you're in there, and anybody who doesn't know that you've had an injury, they're like looking at you like, what the heck is wrong with you? Because at the time I was probably like 220 pounds, and here's this 220-pound guy lifting a 2.5-pound plate on each side of the machine. So it's frustrating in that sense, but hey, it still kept me active, right? I was still going to the gym, and I knew that, hey, I'm doing this and it is going to be productive. And then each week I would try and build up the weight slowly but surely. I'd do that. And within about 6 months, I was back to semi-normal workouts. Within a year, I was back to full-on training. Now that was a full-on muscle tear where there was detachments and everything else, right? So that was a serious injury. But if it's just like a minor pull or strain, you usually can recover from that in the matter of a few weeks or so. But, don't think about what you can't do. Think about what you can do, and that's going to help you mentally as well as physically when it comes to recovering from injuries. Sir Gameslot is asking, is it okay to bulk somewhat healthily? Of course it is, and that's the way you should bulk. I don't recommend these dirty bulks where you just basically pow down food and, anything goes, like pizza and burgers and fries and cake and cookies. I mean, yeah, you'll gain weight if you eat all that crap, but it's not the kind of weight that you want to gain. I mean, obviously, if you're going to focus on bulking up, you do want to do so with healthy food. And what I often recommend to people is treat your bulk up diet just like you would a fat loss cutting diet. The only exception is you're going to be in a caloric surplus rather than a deficit. So you're going to eat the same type of foods, natural, unprocessed foods, your lean protein, your clean carbohydrates, your fruits and vegetables, all that stuff that you would eat if you were trying to cut and lose weight. You're going to eat the same type of foods, but just bump up the portion sizes a bit. And so in order to get into a caloric surplus. And if you do that, then yeah, you can bulk up and do so in a healthy fashion. And that's the best way to do it. I mean, you'll make leaner gains, you'll feel better, and your performance in the gym will be much better as well. Veggie Ready is asking, do you do yoga or Tai Chi? I personally do. Someone racing their car up the road there. I don't know if you heard it on the mic or not, but anyway, back to the question. Veggie Ready is asking, do I do yoga or Tai Chi? I've never done Tai Chi, but I like to do yoga. That's something that I do on my off days from weight training. I've gotten into it more this past year, and I really enjoy it. And I know a lot of guys kind of shun away from yoga and stretching and that kind of stuff in general, but it does have a lot of benefits. And I feel much better physically and mentally when I do yoga on a regular basis. It's a great complementary workout to weight training. Like it's kind of like that, getting the balance of like a yin and yang balance. You got the high intensity, hardcore weight training in the gym, and then you have the gentle, relaxing exercise of yoga. I mean, you can still make yoga pretty darn intense. Don't get me wrong, but I kind of do like a moderate yoga. I mean, I'm not going to be doing some crazy twisted up like a pretzel poses here now, but I like to do a good balance routine of weight training and yoga, and I find that it's very helpful. And I made a video on YouTube not too long ago. If you scroll through my most recent videos, you should see it. I basically do a little summary of how I've been incorporating yoga into my workouts. All right, myself is the username, and he says, I'm from New Delhi, India. I have started the gym recently, so would like to start taking a protein and a multivitamin. Please suggest the best option. As far as a protein powder is concerned, I'm a big fan of whey protein. That's what I like to use personally. And there's 3 different types of whey protein. You have a whey isolate, you have a whey concentrate, and then you have a blend of isolate and concentrate. Now, there are other types, but those are the 3 main ones. A whey isolate is going to be the most expensive because it's basically pure isolated protein with the fat and the lactose removed. A whey concentrate is just concentrated protein. It's going to have a bit of fat and lactose included in it, so it's not as concentrated, but it's generally a lot cheaper. And then a blend is literally like a half and half blend of both. If you are lactose intolerant, or you're very nitpicky about your calories, and as a beginner, you probably aren't, but you may be lactose intolerant, but I don't think you'd be nitpicky over your calories as much. If you have issues digesting lactose, go with the whey isolate because it has the lactose removed. If you don't have any issues digesting lactose, then you can go with either a whey concentrate or a whey blend. This will be a cheaper alternative, and the quality of the protein is just as good. I mean, the actual protein that you're getting on a gram for gram basis is the same as you would be getting if it was an expensive whey isolate, but you're just getting a concentrate or a blend, and there will be a little bit of fat and lactose along with it, so a little bit of extra fat and carbohydrate grams in there along with the protein, but it's the best in terms of the best bang for your buck. It's the most economical way to go, and a lot of times they sometimes even taste better as well, because when you add a little bit of fat and carbs to a shake, it can make it taste a bit more creamy and actually give the protein shake a nicer texture and a nicer flavor. So that's what I usually use. I personally like to use a whey blend, a blend of isolate and concentrate. As far as the brand is concerned, that's really going to depend on where you live. I mean, I don't know what brands of protein powders and the brands of multivitamins are available in India. I've never been to India, so I can't really offer any specific suggestions. When it comes to the multivitamin, there's mixed reviews when it comes to these. I mean, some people say they're a waste of time or a waste of money. Others think they're essential. I personally take a daily multivitamin, just kind of like as that insurance policy to make sure that you're getting, all the vitamins and minerals that you need. But again, as far as the specific brands, I really don't know what you have available. So my advice is to ask around at your local gym, see what brands that the local gym members suggest, and kind of make your decision based off what's available in your local area. Next question. This one is XXK4 Rilzex. What's a good strength training program for an advanced lifter to use while cutting so they can maintain as much strength as possible so you maintain as much muscle as possible? All right. There's a lot. A good strength training program. I mean, where do I begin? There are a lot of good strength training programs out there. As part of the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Inner Circle, I have all my favorite workout programs listed there. And in fact, what we have is a workout of the month program, where every single month I provide a brand new training program. And these programs will vary month to month. So, for example, one month we may have a powerlifting style program, power/strength style program. Next month, it could be a bodybuilding hypertrophy style program. The following month, it might be a conditioning style program. And then we'll have different variations of these within. So each month we'll get a different program, and you can literally follow them back to back, and follow one program until you start to plateau, and then follow the next style of program until you start to plateau, and then switch it up to the next one. And what you'll find is each time you switch to a different style of training, you'll see a new spurt of gains. You'll actually, see and feel that your body responding to the different muscle stimulation from the different style of training. So as far as a good program, I personally recommend just cycling them. And how you go about it is follow one particular program. I mean, it could be a 5x5 program. It could be positions of flexion. It could be a push-pull program, or, upper lower body split, whatever. I mean, just pick a program that's complete, training all your major muscle groups in balance and proportion with progressive overload, something that's meeting all the fundamental requirements. Follow that program until your results plateau. See, every program you follow, the way it works is your body's going to adapt to that program, and in the response of adapting to it, it's going to grow, and then eventually it's going to plateau. So you go through this adapt, grow, plateau, adapt, grow, plateau. And that happens with every program. So pick a program, follow it right through until you start to plateau. And how you know you plateaued is when your strength gains stagnate. So if you get to the point where you can't make any further strength gains, or worse, you start to actually lose strength, then that's a sign that your body has basically ran its course with that particular program, and it would be a good idea to change it up and do something else. So that's what I would recommend. And if you do that on a regular basis while you're cutting, then you'll maintain your muscle and your strength, most of it anyway, while you're losing the body fat. All right, let's move on. We have Veggie Ready. Veggie Ready saying, don't cut when building strength. Just to, sorry, he's replying to someone's question. Anyway, I'll just reply to his comment there anyway. He says, don't cut when building strength, just decrease fat, just recomping the body, getting back into things. I understand where he's coming from. Like, obviously, you're not going to maximize your strength gains while you're on a cutting program, but you don't have to give up on your strength gains. Like, just because you're following a low-calorie fat loss diet doesn't mean that you should all of a sudden say, oh, well, I'm not going to gain strength, so don't even try. You should still try, still fight for your strength gains, still push yourself in the gym with the same motivation and the same intensity as if you were going to try and gain strength, but just realize that it's kind of inevitable that you're not going to make the same gains when you're in a caloric deficit as you will when you're in a surplus. But by having that mentality and approaching your workouts with that same drive and that same intensity, you're going to be more likely to maintain or even possibly gain lean muscle while you're losing body fat. Whereas if you take this whole, well, I'm on a cut, I can't gain strength, so I'm just going to do all light, high rep workouts. If you do that, then your risk of losing muscle while cutting just goes up, exponentially, because now you're not placing the same stress and demands on the body in order to maintain the muscle in the first place. As they say, if you don't use it, you lose it. So that you want to keep using it and keep pushing yourself with progressive overload, even while you're following a fat loss cutting diet. But just be smart about it. Realize that, it's inevitable that you're probably going to lose a bit of strength in the process, but don't give in too soon. Fight and try to keep that strength up during your entire cutting phase. We have Adaptive Android joining us, and he says, do you think squatting heavy is better in shoes or barefoot? I've never squat barefoot myself, so I've always used shoes. Now, I don't usually use a proper squat shoe. I usually just use like a flat sole shoe, so it's kind of similar to squatting barefoot. It really depends on your individual flexibility and mobility. I know some people find it hard to squat deep unless they have their heels elevated, and that's usually just due to the your body mechanics and your ankle flexibility and everything else. So some people will respond better with a proper set of squat shoes. Others like to wear just a flat sole shoe. I know some people like to wear work boots with a an elevated heel that way. That's kind of like a poor man's squat shoe, and it works pretty darn good. I mean, I know a lot of powerlifters who actually compete and squat in work boots, because again, it's a good, sturdy, solid footwear, and it has that elevated heel. What I wouldn't recommend squatting in is running shoes, something with a soft, cushiony heel. I mean, if you're just a recreational lifter, I mean, you can get away with it. But if you're serious about improving your squat, you either want to squat with a flat sole shoe or something with a hard heel. Because if you squat in a soft, cushy running shoe, something with air pockets and all that to absorb the impact, it's going to compress as you squat. And that compression is actually going to take away some of the drive and power that you could otherwise generate in your squat. So squat in something solid, like a good pair of squat shoes, heavy work boots, or flat sole sneakers, something like a Chuck Taylor Converse type sneaker. That's what I usually wear. So I find that those are the best for me. But as far as barefoot, I've never done that myself, and I don't think too many gyms would allow you to go walking barefoot throughout the gym. Most of them have a shirt and shoes policy, just like any public store would. Carlos Mendez says, what are alternative exercises for the leg press if you don't have a leg press machine at home? One good exercise that is a nice alternative is a hip belt squat. And you can buy these proper belts that you can load weight on and do your squats that way. And the hip belt squat is similar in muscle activation to the leg press because you're not loading up your back with weight. All the weight is literally loaded from the hips. And it has this similar type of feel to a leg press. And I actually made a video several months ago. I don't know exactly when. It was last year sometime, I think, or maybe even it was a couple years ago. I can't remember how long ago it was now, but I made a video on hip belt squat. So if you go to do a search for Lee Hayward hip belt squat, you'll find that particular video. And I go into a lot of detail about how to set it up and the particular belt that I recommend and all that. But that would be a good alternative for a home gym because hip belt squats are relatively cheap, and it's a great squat variation that you can do. All right, let's see. We have Wallix 11 saying, Lee, this is Alexander de Moita. I'm on a cutting phase until I could see my abs so I could build lean muscle mass afterwards since my dream body is ripped and big. All right. I'm on a cutting phase until I could see my abs so I could build lean muscle mass afterwards. I don't know if that's a question or a statement or what. Maybe, I don't know if there may be a follow-up question to that, but that's what you should do. I mean, if you're going to commit to a cutting phase, then you should definitely do it until you hit a desired goal. One of the problems that a lot of people have is they they hop back and forth between bulking and cutting. Someone might say, well, I'm too skinny, I want to bulk up. And then they start bulking for a couple weeks and they're, oh shit, I'm getting too fat. And then they say, I got to go cut. And then they'll go cut for a couple weeks. And then they'll say, oh gee, I'm losing all my muscle, I got to go bulk again. And they're just back and forth, never really making any progress in one direction or the other. If you are going to go on a cutting phase, then stick to it. If you're going to go on a bulking phase, then stick to it. Have a certain, outcome in mind. I mean, if it's the case of cutting, then, you want to get your body fat to a certain percentage, or you want to get, visible abdominal definition or whatever it is, but stick to it until you actually reach that goal and follow through. This hopping back and forth, oh, this week I think I'm going to cut, and then, 2 weeks later I'm going to bulk, and oh, I don't know what I'm going to do now, and I'm just back and forth, all wishy-washy. You're never really going to make any headway in one direction or the other. If you want to bulk, then bulk. Commit to it. I would recommend, a 3-month phase is a good guideline to go by, but obviously you can adjust it shorter or longer depending on your own personal goals. But commit to it. That's all I'm saying. Don't give up halfway through because you're a little bit frustrated or the results isn't coming as fast as you think it should. Or if you're going to do it and commit to it and see it through until you actually reach your goal that you're trying to achieve. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Why do low carbohydrate diets cut weight fast? It's worked for me in the past, but I lost a lot of strength. I want to try carb cycling, but try a better approach so I don't lose gym performance / mass. All right, the reason why you're losing so much weight on a low carbohydrate diet is because once you cut carbohydrates, you also lose a lot of water weight. For every gram of stored glycogen in your system, your body's going to retain 3 grams of water. So if you have, all that muscle glycogen that's stored, all that liver glycogen that's stored, it's all pulling water in as well. So, I mean, for every gram of glycogen that gets stored, 3 grams of water goes with it. You go on a low-carb diet, your body starts depleting glycogen stores, burning that up. As the glycogen gets depleted, so does all that water. And that's why you lose so much weight on a low-carb diet, and that's why you also feel flat. Your muscles literally deflate because you're losing all that glycogen and water. Now, if you stay low-carb, and get past that initial hump and actually stay low-carb and get to the point where you're getting into a ketosis and following that, you can actually adapt and start to feel full and strong again as your body switches from being primarily a carbohydrate burner to being primarily a fat burner. So if you let your body actually make that transition, you will start to feel better, and your strength and energy will start to, come back up as you transition from burning carbohydrates to burning fat. But it's in that transition phase where, it sucks, because you feel flat, you feel depleted, you lose a lot of weight, your strength drops, and that's why it frustrates a lot of people. So I personally like the carb cycling approach, and I do recommend that for a lot of my coaching students. The way it works, well, there's a lot of ways it could potentially work, but bottom line, you're going to go through phases of low carbohydrates in order to tap into burning stored body fat for fuel, and then you're going to strategically bump up your carbohydrates in order to help refill your glycogen stores and to rebuild any muscle tissue that you may have lost during the low carb phase. So it's kind of a build and burn style of training when you go through a carb cycle rotation. And again, there's different ways to go about it. If you've never done it before, a simple way to do it would be like low carb during the weekdays, high carb on the weekends. That's a simple strategy, but I like that one because it works for most people who work Monday to Friday. You can kind of just, because if you work a Monday to Friday job, chances are you have your weekday diet and then you have your weekend diet, and they're two different things, because obviously when you're off on the weekend, you have more time, you're probably eating with bigger meals. A lot of times if we have family dinners and get-togethers or go out to restaurants, it's usually on the weekend. So if you structure it that way, you can actually make it work with your lifestyle. So be low carb and strict during the weekdays, and then high carb and a caloric surplus on the weekends. Can give you that carb cycle rotation that you need in order to burn fat while simultaneously building or at least maintaining muscle in the process. Now, there's other more advanced variations of carb cycling that we can get into, but that's a basic one that I would recommend people start with if you haven't done it yet. Okay, we have Munish. Says, having growth pains at the age of 15 in my knees, but also I'm working out my whole body for my sport, parkour. Shall I carry on? Okay, you're having knee pain at 15 years of age, and you're calling it growth pain. Maybe it is growth pain, but first off, parkour is very intense. Obviously, when you're doing all that jumping and the impact that's involved with parkour. And I don't know how advanced you are with parkour, but I watched some YouTube videos and it gets pretty damn crazy, some of the stuff. So I don't know what level you're at, but even if you're, an up and coming parkourist, I don't know if that's the right terminology to use, but I'm going to call it a parkourist. If you're an up and coming advocate of parkour and you're trying all these different jumps and stunts and all that kind of stuff, it's going to place a heck of a lot of impact and strain on the joints. And if you're experiencing knee pain, then I don't think you should continue what you're doing until that recovers, because if you just keep trying to train through the pain, you're probably going to make it worse. The best advice I can give you is to go see a physiotherapist, preferably someone who's used to working with athletes, and have them examine you and diagnose whatever issue you're dealing with in your knee. Because, who knows? You may have caused some damage. There might be some cartilage damage or some tendon or ligament damage done there. Who knows what you've got done? And if you just keep trying to train through the pain, that's not usually a smart solution. So, pain is kind of your body's signal to say, hey, something ain't right here. Pay attention and get it checked out. So that's what I would recommend you do. Because, again, I can't really... I don't know what kind of training you're doing, and I don't really know what kind of knee pain you're having, but I would recommend that you go get yourself checked out by a professional, preferably, like say, a good physiotherapist who's used to working with athletes. Not the physiotherapist that's used to working with, senior citizens and all that kind of thing. You want someone who understands the sports mindset and understands the type of impact that you're putting your body under, and get worked by someone like that, and have them examine you and kind of figure out what the heck you got going on with your knees, and then hopefully they'll be able to recommend some rehab exercises or some sort of treatment that you can do to correct that knee issue. All right, we have a quick sip of water. Wallix11 is saying, I'm not eating enough calories. I decided to only drink water, cut dairy, bread, rice, sugar, fruit to get a flat stomach. Hard to eat all my macros, though, especially carbs. All right, I'm not eating enough calories. I decided only to drink water, cut out dairy, bread, rice, sugar, fruit, trying to get a flat stomach. Hard to eat all my macros, especially carbs. There's a lot of foods that you could be eating to get your macros without dairy, bread, rice, and sugar. You have meat, fish, chicken, eggs. You've got potatoes and sweet potatoes and vegetables. I mean, that's, as far as fat's concerned, there's nuts, there's seeds, there's avocados, there's, olive oil, coconut oil. There's a lot of foods you could be eating to make up your macros without dairy, bread, rice, and sugar. So it just comes down to making some better food choices and, expanding your diet foods, if you will. That's one of the things. Like, a lot of times we get into a habit of eating the same stuff over and over again, especially, if you've been raised, for young people living at home. I mean, you grew up with whatever your parents put on the table, and now, you went your whole life eating that, and then you get out on your own, and usually you're eating the same kind of stuff, or maybe you go to college or university, and then you're eating the same type of stuff in the mess hall, and you just get into a habit of eating the same stuff over and over and over again. But you have to realize there's a lot of food out there, all right? There's a lot of different foods out there. Go to the grocery store and start walking through that produce aisle, and you'll see stuff there that you probably never touched before. Go through the different types of meats and poultry and fish. I mean, as far as fish, I mean, there's hundreds of different fish that you could potentially eat. So, I mean, you could have a wide variety of protein just from fish alone. Different types of food. There's beef and bison and game meat. I mean, there's all kinds of different food that you can eat. You don't have to just think of this little tunnel vision of the few foods that you normally eat on a regular basis. There's a lot of stuff out there. If you want some good nutrition suggestions, I recommend picking up a copy of the Anabolic Cooking Cookbook. A friend of mine, Dave Rule, put this together. He put it together several years ago, but he constantly re-updates it and adds new content to it. But go to anaboliccooking.net, anaboliccooking.net, and you can download a copy of it. And like I say, it's a good guide because it covers a lot of different recipes and a lot of different foods, but it tries to take this plain old boring bodybuilding bro foods and basically make them more appetizing and palatable with different styles of cooking while still having them fit, a bodybuilding diet plan. So give a shout out to the Anabolic Cooking Cookbook. That's something that you'd probably definitely benefit with if you are struggling with your nutrition. Okay, let's see. Second, now I just lost my place. When I clicked my mouse there, my video chat jumped. Okay. Stefan's asking, how do you do more chin-ups? You do more chin-ups by doing more chin-ups. Literally. And what I mean by that is more frequent chin-up workouts or pull-up workouts, however you want to look at it. But multiple sets, stopping short of failure, and just focus on the total, focus on the total volume of repetitions done. So a lot of people, if they're going to do pull-ups or chin-ups, they'll grab the bar and they'll rep out to failure just to see how many I can do, right? They'll go, 5 reps to failure or 6 reps to failure or whatever, 10 reps, whatever you can do. They'll rep out to failure and they basically exhaust themselves. What I would recommend you do is do multiple sets, stopping short of failure. Even if it's like 1 or 2 reps per set, just do that, take a minute rest, and then do another set. Take a minute rest, do another set, and just look at the total volume that you can get over the course of time. Another little strategy that I like to use is to incorporate pull-ups and chin-ups in between exercises of your regular workouts. And you can do this regardless of if it's a back day or a leg day, chest day, doesn't matter. You can do this any day. So for example, before you start your workout, go to the pull-up bar and do a set. Now stop short of failure. So I mean, whatever it is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reps, do whatever many reps, but make sure that you stop before you're hanging from the bar and struggling and shaking and basically exerting all your force. Just do a few easy reps. Stop, go on, do your exercise. So if it's a chest day, go on and do your bench presses. Then after the bench presses, just run back over to the pull-up bar, do one quick set of pull-ups. Boom. And then go on and do your next exercise, be it dumbbell flies. After you finish that, go back over, do another set of pull-ups. Do your next chest exercise, and then keep going back. And if it's leg day, same thing. In between each exercise, just throw in a quick set of pull-ups / chin-ups. And what you'll find is the more often you do them, the better you're going to get, and the more you're going to increase your work capacity for doing that exercise. You can also get a pull-up bar for home. I mean, you can get one that fits in the doorway if you don't have one already. You may even be able to rig something up. I mean, back years ago, down in my basement, in the rafters of the basement, I hung a bar through the rafters, and I would do my pull-ups and chin-ups at home, just hanging from the rafters of the basement. And I did that for years, but it's a great way to just get in some extra pull-ups and chin-ups. And that's how I got good at those exercises, is just doing them more frequently, multiple sets, stopping short of failure. And again, the more often you do it, the better you're going to get. Now, if you can't do any at all right now, focus on doing negatives, where you literally have a chair or a stool or something underneath the bar. Use your feet to assist you to the top, and then slowly lower down under, just letting your body weight pull you down as slowly as you can. And that's a great way to build up your strength. And if you keep doing negatives on a regular basis, then eventually you'll get to the point where you'll be able to do a positive repetition. And then once you're at that stage, then you can do the frequent chin-up workouts like I mentioned. But again, how do you get better and do more chin-ups? You have to do more chin-ups, literally. More often, more frequency. And stopping short of failure so that you're not overstressing the muscles. Like, you don't want to rep out to failure, because what's going to happen is that's when you're really going to cause damage and literally slow your progress. But if you stop those sets short of failure, you can recover from them more quickly and train again more frequently. Okay. All right, let's see what else we've got here. Adaptive Android is asking, what do you suggest that you do for a workout after a 5x5 program stops working? If you're doing a 5x5 program, I would get into more of a bodybuilding split. Personally, I would recommend the positions of flexion. And this is a very good bodybuilding program. I like it because it has a lot of exercise variety, and it takes all your major muscle groups through the full range of motion, meaning mid-range, fully stretched, and peak contraction. Now, I have YouTube video playlists explaining the positions of flexion style of training. If you're a member of the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Inner Circle, we have a couple different positions of flexion workout variations that you can follow there as well. But that's what I would recommend after a 5x5 program, because 5x5 would be considered a power training program. Positions of flexion would be a bodybuilding hypertrophy program. So that would be a good complementary program to follow up with. Okay, we have Bill joining us, and he says, Lee, as an older, fairly advanced, what are your thoughts on working a body part once a week? I've heard lower frequency, less volume for an older lifter. If it works for you, by all means, do it. You're going to hear all kinds of suggestions when it comes to body part frequency. Some people say, oh, you need to train your body parts twice a week. Some are going to say 3 times a week. Some are going to say once a week, and everything in between. You're going to hear all kinds of different, suggestions. Bottom line, just pick one. Pick one and follow it and see how it works for you. The general rule of thumb is if you're training a body part once a week, you're probably going to be doing more volume per body part workout than if you're training that body part multiple times per week. Because you can only handle so much volume per body part. You know, it's not like you can do 20 sets on Monday and then do another 20 sets on Wednesday and then another 20 sets on Friday and do that week after week after week and recover. I mean, your body only has so much recovery ability. So if you're doing a more frequent program, then you're basically going to space that volume out over the course of several workouts. If you're usually doing a once a week style program, hitting each body part once a week, that is, then you're probably doing a more complete workout in that one session. So the overall training volume for the week is what you really need to focus on. And the specific numbers are going to vary for everyone. I mean, you know, we all have different work capacities. We all have different fitness levels. You know, a beginner is not going to be able to handle as much volume as a more advanced person. And then, of course, as you get a bit older, that has an impact on your recovery as well. I mean, someone in their 50s is probably not going to be able to recover the same as someone who's 25. So you have to factor all these things in. But bottom line, just pick a particular program, pick a split, the set and rep pattern and all that, and see how it works for you, and basically adjust it based on how your body is responding. So if you're making progress, you're seeing strength gains, you feel good about the workouts, you're sleeping well, and everything seems to be working fine, then that's a good sign. That means it's probably a good program for you. If you're starting to feel burnt out, overtrained, you're not feeling that you're recovering after your workouts, you know, you have that delayed onset muscle soreness that just lingers on. If you're losing motivation for your workouts and, you know, losing body weight and all that kind of stuff, these are signs that you're probably pushing the limits of overtraining and you may need to back off a bit. You know, so you really have to kind of be in tune to your own body. And if you are an older and advanced lifter, you probably already are fairly in tune with your body. So again, just pick a program and see how it works for you. And what I would suggest, whatever style of program that you're following now, I mean, if you're not happy with your progress with that program, try something else. So if you're currently following a once a week split and it's not working, try hitting each major muscle group twice a week and just see how that works. Try it for the next month. You know, you may get a new little growth spurt out of it. And, you know, if you enjoy the gains, keep riding it for as long as you can until it stops working for you. And then when it does, then you can change it up and try something else. You know, I usually change up my workouts usually every 4 to 6 weeks is when I kind of a benchmark of when I'll change up my programs. I mean, sometimes I'll let it ride longer than that. If I'm following a program, I really enjoy it and I'm making gains, I'll follow it longer. Other times, if I'm following a program and either I don't really enjoy it or I'm not seeing the progress that I'd like to, then I might just cut it short at, say, 3 or 4 weeks and then change it up after that. But, you know, you don't have to, don't be afraid to experiment with different styles of training. That's what I'm trying to get at here. And that includes changing up the variables in terms of the frequency of your workouts. But don't do it haphazardly. You know, that's one thing that I kind of caution people against, because a lot of times when people hear that, oh, you should change up your workouts, then they end up changing them all the time. So, you know, they think, well, I'm going to change up my workout every time I go to the gym and do something totally different. But the problem is, if you're doing something totally different all the time, I mean, you can still make some progress doing that. I mean, it's still better than nothing, but you're not going to maximize your gains because you're not allowing your body to adapt and grow in response to a specific program. So having some structure and some, you know, consistency in there is essential for maximizing your progress and for monitoring your progress. Because if you're constantly doing something different every time, then how do you know you've improved from the last time when it's totally different? Right? You can't monitor it. So you need something that's consistent and measurable so that you can actually see that you're making progress on a weekly basis. And then when you do get to the point where your progress either plateaus or even starts to go backwards, where you start to lose strength, then you can change it up and follow a different training protocol instead. Okay, let's see what else we got. Rupert is joining us. He says, hi, Lee. I'm from England. I love your videos. My question is, how do I strengthen my lower back? Feel my upper back and legs are bulking up, but my lower back feels weak. Well, Rupert, thanks for your question, and glad you enjoy the videos. when it comes to the lower back, you can do a lot of specific lower back exercises, a lot of core work. You know, when people think of their core, they usually think of their abdominals, but really the core is everything. It's the whole midsection, you know, your abs, your obliques, and your lower back. So when you're doing your core work, make sure that you balance it out with an equal volume of lower back work. Some things that you can do: hyperextensions are one of my favorites. You can do a lot of hyperextensions, and I like to use different variations of hyperextensions. You can use the 45-degree angle one, and then there's usually like a horizontal one. I like to use both because they place different emphasis on the lower back. More often than not, the 45-degree angle hyper is going to give you a better stretch in the bottom, but it's not going to give you as much of a peak contraction at the top. The horizontal hyperextension is going to give you a better peak contraction at the top, but not going to give you the same degree of stretch at the bottom. So if you have access to both of them, you can literally superset them back and forth. You can do, like, you know, one set of 45-degree angle hyperextension, one set of horizontal, and work it back and forth, say like 2 sets each, and do that 2 or 3 times a week. And that's a great way to help give some extra muscle stimulation to that lower back. Good mornings is another phenomenal lower back exercise. It's kind of a, you know, a neglected, unheard of, forgotten exercise, but good mornings are popular among powerlifters and weightlifters and strongman competitors because they work. They're a phenomenal exercise for building up your entire posterior chain. Other ones that you can incorporate in there as well: kettlebell swings. That's another great exercise. And, you know, this is something you can even do at home. I mean, you can go buy yourself a kettlebell and perform kettlebell swings at home in your spare time, or you can do them at the gym as well. What are some other ones I can think of? All forms of deadlifts, you know, are great for the lower back. Be it a conventional deadlift, you know, a stiff leg deadlift, Romanian deadlift. I mean, they're all going to engage the lower back. Squats, I mean, your lower back comes into play with squats, but the squat is not, even though it works the lower back, I wouldn't consider it an exercise to develop your lower back. It's kind of like you want to have a strong lower back in order to squat. So I'm not going to include that one here as my specialization exercises. But even if you just focus on those, the hyperextensions, good mornings, and kettlebell swings, I mean, those are phenomenal exercises to build up the lower back. I mean, you can do all three, or you can just do the hyperextensions alone, right? But the key with it is frequency. Frequently training the lower back. And what I mean by that is, like, every other day, do a few sets of hyperextensions, or every other day, do a few sets of good mornings. Try not to train it to the point of exhaustion. Like, I wouldn't recommend like banging out 20 sets of lower back work or anything like that, but just do a few sets frequently. And by doing that, you're just providing a little bit of muscle stimulation, but you're still allowing your body to recover and not get beat up from the workouts. So these short little mini workouts, these short little frequent workouts are going to allow you to build up that weak area without breaking it down in the process. So it's a great way to get extra training volume without really negatively affecting the rest of your workouts as well. Okay. All right, I'm going to take one more question, then we're going to clue it up for the day. This one's a different one. This is from Carlos, and he says, does nicotine affect muscle growth? I've done research. I guess that means I've done Googling. And some people say they do, and some say it doesn't. I don't cape myself. I don't know. Anyway, the question is, does nicotine affect muscle growth? Nicotine in and of itself does not affect muscle growth. It's usually what's associated with nicotine, the form of nicotine that you're getting. Like, I mean, obviously the common forms of nicotine, cigarettes, that does, because when you smoke a cigarette, there is thousands of chemicals, right? I mean, it's not just the nicotine. Nicotine is one, right? But there are so many chemicals. And plus, when you're burning it, you're breathing in all that smoke and tar and everything else. Now, does it affect muscle growth? I mean, it certainly doesn't help muscle growth. But with that being said, I know a lot of bodybuilders. Well, not a lot. I know some bodybuilders who are regular smokers and have still built impressive muscular physiques. A lot of European bodybuilders are smokers and still, work out and build muscular physiques. A lot of French bodybuilders, and this is one thing I noticed a few years back. I went to the Canadian Nationals, and outside the Nationals, it was in the summertime when they had the Nationals, so it was beautiful weather outside, and it was like a lot of people were actually outside in the parking lot because it was so hot and crowded inside the auditorium and that where they were having the Nationals. So when people weren't on stage, they were waiting for their turn. A lot of people were outside, and I was out there because my wife was competing at the Canadian Nationals that year. It was in 2012, it was, and we were outside, and I'm just, a lot of people smoking, and then I look over, and here's, a bunch of bodybuilders and figure and fitness competitors, are smoking away and puffing, and then when I hear them speak, I'd say like they were all speaking French. So I'm like, wow, these French people like to smoke and work out, and then they were in phenomenal shape. So obviously the smoking didn't hinder their muscle gains, or at least they were able to build muscle and lose fat and in spite of the fact that they were smoking. That's what I would most likely say it is. I mean, it's not necessarily going to hinder it, but it's certainly not going to help. I mean, there's a lot of other health negative consequences to smoking and everything else. But bottom line, I mean, you can still build an impressive physique even if you are a smoker, right? And now, again, I'm not saying it's the healthiest way to do it, and I'm not recommending it. But again, people sometimes do it in spite of the fact that they are doing smoking. Now, as far as the nicotine itself, that's kind of Carlos's specific question. I know I kind of got off on a little rant there. But the nicotine itself is not the negative element. In fact, a lot of people use nicotine in itself as a performance enhancement. It can have a mental enhancement, and it can also, have a benefit towards bodybuilding in terms of helping to curb your appetite and increase your energy levels, almost similar to caffeine in that effect. It can have that kind of stimulant effect on the body. And a lot of people will use nicotine as in like a nicotine gum or a nicotine spray or something along those lines as a diet crutch, just like you would use a fat burner or a caffeine supplement to help with your bodybuilding program. Some people will actually use nicotine in the same fashion. And I actually made a YouTube video covering this. I think I made it last year or maybe the year before. I can't remember, but it's a while back now I made it. But if you go and search for Lee Hayward nicotine, you'll see my video on it. And I basically go into detail talking about, how nicotine can actually have some positive benefits. Unlike the mainstream media tries to make it seem all negative, a lot of times it's not the nicotine that is the bad guy. It's the other chemicals associated with the forms of nicotine delivery, right? Like a lot of the experts out there, they refer to it as nicotine is actually a good drug. It just has a poor delivery system in the form of smoking tobacco. But if you can have a cleaner delivery system, it can actually be beneficial in some cases. All right, guys, I'm going to get ready and clue this up. I know we have a lot of video chat questions coming through, and I do appreciate everyone for joining and taking the time to post your questions. As I mentioned at the beginning of the chat, it's usually the people who post their questions earliest. Obviously, they're the ones who I'm going to get to the soonest because you guys can type a lot faster than I can speak. So obviously, there's more questions coming through than I can answer. But thanks again for tuning in. I do appreciate all the help and support. I will have the replay of this video chat posted up on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel afterwards. And the way that I always do these video chats when I post up the replays is I'll put timestamps down in the description below. So if you want to jump to a particular question, then you can just click on the timestamps to do that. And it'll make it easier rather than having to sift through an hour-long video to find a particular question that interests you. So anyway, have yourself a fantastic weekend. I will do another live video chat just like this next Friday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. That's going to be a regular thing. So if you want to kind of put it in your calendar there, if you want to tune in, 3:30 Eastern time on Friday is when I'll be doing these live video chats. And I look forward to talking to you then. Have yourself a great weekend. Over and out.